Fun.
Okay, I think we're good to go, Todd. You can go ahead and take it away.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone, and hello. Welcome to the Active Seniors in Nature virtual event that's co-hosted by AARP of New Hampshire, Birch Hill, which is New Hampshire's only continuing care retirement community, and the Nature Conservancy in New Hampshire. I am Todd Fahey, the New Hampshire State Director for AARP, and I'll be moderating today's event. Before we jump in, I'd like to start with some general virtual housekeeping events that I'm sure you've all heard of if you've been on these things before. The first and most important thing is that this is being recorded. The recording will be sent out after this event to the email you used to register for this event, but do know you are being recorded. Another important thing to note is that the event does have the option for closed captioning. So if you look toward the bottom of your screen, you can click on the CC icon to turn those on. We do ask that you only turn those on if you need them to improve your experience, because it helps us preserve the bandwidth for the other participants. So we do ask that you keep yourself on mute unless you're called on later in the event to ask a question or provide a comment. And for those of you joining us by phone, we will be providing some additional information right now before we open the question and answer portion of the event on how you can best engage in the conversation without the video format. So why AARP? Why me here? Well, I'm honored to be here. I love the Nature Conservancy, and certainly a fan of all the great work we do in our CCRCs in New Hampshire. We have some of the best such facilities in the nation, and we should be proud of that. But at AARP, we believe that access to outdoor spaces and great places are really important. And we have an aging population, as you know, in New Hampshire, but it's not just New Hampshire. We have an aging world. We live in an aging nation within an aging world, and an aging state within an aging nation. Now, that's not a bad thing. I mean, the fact of the matter is it's good that we're living longer, but the question is, how do we create places and spaces that make it most habitable and hospitable for us, whether we're younger people or whether we're older people, because everybody can benefit from great outdoor spaces. So today we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'll have a few moments to talk about our livable communities work, in which case we support cities and towns and sometimes even states for becoming more livable and making places, be they physical places or outdoor spaces, that are great places for people of all ages. We'll talk a little bit more about that a little later. Communities can be designed to promote physical independence, dignity, and opportunities for community engagement and choice as we age as a nation. I would say that as we kick this off, sometimes the design needs to be, the word I use is intentional. And by that, I would say one needs to think about what it is that we're doing. So things don't often just happen by chance. Sometimes they do. You remember that funny thing where you have like 100,000 monkeys all typing for maybe, what, 1,000 years, and they come out with a Beethoven symphony, but that is not usually how it happens. We need to be a little more intentional about how we design our places. And that's exactly what we're talking about here with the Manchester Cedar Swamp Universally Accessible Trail. It's a focus on a place. It is a focus on a design. It is an intentional creation of a place that makes a space more livable. And so it's great to have different folks to talk about how this is gonna work. So I know many of us could talk about this for much longer than an hour. I'm sorry I've taken a little bit more of my time, but the first is to spread awareness of the upcoming Manchester Cedar Swamp Universally Accessible Trail. It's a really exciting opportunity to hear about what's happening there. And it's also an opportunity to talk about how such trails and such open spaces and places can provide opportunities for people who are younger and people who are over 50, people who have mobility challenges, people without mobility challenges, and this can get out in a very inclusive way to discuss these places that really make the places that we all like home. So now that we've reviewed the goals of the event, I'm going to briefly introduce our speakers for today. First, we have Charlotte Harding. Charlotte's the AmeriCorps Volunteer Coordinator for the Nature Conservancy in New Hampshire, and she'll be setting the stage for our conversation by providing us with a brief overview of the Manchester Cedar Swamp Universal Trail Build project. Next, we'll have Carl and Elaine Schmotlax and Bill FOSS. Carl, Elaine, and Bill are residents of Birch Hill who frequent the property we're talking about today, and they'll have some pre-recorded videos which we'll play to share with you. And also joining us from Birch Hill is Kim Murphy. Kim's the marketing specialist at Birch Hill Retirement Community. And then finally, we were going to have somebody from my organization speak, but you'll have to hear from me a little bit more. But soon we'll go off to the, like now, we'll go to our presenters. I'd like to turn it over to Charlotte and to give us an overview of the Universal Trail Build. And go ahead, take it away.
Thank you, Todd. Yeah, so like Todd said, my name is Charlotte Harding. I'm an AmeriCorps serving with the Nature Conservancy in New Hampshire, and I'm gonna give you a little presentation here. So I'm gonna share my screen. And start the presentation. Is everyone seeing my screen? One of the panelists could, okay. All right, so this is a map of the greater Manchester area with our Manchester Cedar Swamp Preserve shown as the dark green area in between Hackett Hill Road and Dunbarton Road on the north side of the city. At 640 acres, it's the largest area of natural lands within the city limits. There's currently 2 miles of trails on the preserve that look like typical hiking trails with rocks, roots, and hilly terrain. But with this site being so close to a retirement community, as well as the largest urban area in New Hampshire, we want the trails to appeal to more than our typical hikers. There are so many benefits to being in nature, but for too many, getting outdoors and realizing these benefits can be challenging. That's why we're planning on building a universally accessible trail at this preserve to increase access to nature for all. We're using the USDA's Accessibility Guidebook to Outdoor Recreation and Trails as a starting point for our trail design. This guidebook specifies parameters for making hiking trails as accessible for people with physical disabilities. Additionally, we're hosting a number of conversations like this in hopes of learning about barriers that may not be included in this guidebook, so that we can look for ways to address them in our current planning phase. On the screen now is a map of our Manchester Cedar Swamp Preserve. The existing trails are shown as the dashed lines right here and here. And the proposed accessible trail is shown as the thick purple line right along here. If you follow along with the yellow stars that all pop up on the map, I'll show you a few features of the new trail. So starting at the trailhead, the new accessible trail will take visitors through the open, dry, rocky oak woodland that's characteristic of the preserve. Large rocks and boulders are strewn throughout the forest as a result of the area's historic glacial activity. The trail will lead to an overlook where visitors can enjoy views across one of the largest Atlantic white cedar swamps in the state. And this particular swamp is fascinating because the understory is dominated by another rare plant, the giant rhododendron, which puts a gorgeous show of large white flowers in late July. From here, the trail will continue through more rocky oak woodlands until it ultimately connects with the small loop that is our existing cedar trail, where we plan to upgrade the current bog bridges that you see on the left to a 5-foot wide boardwalk like the ones shown on the right. We're also fortunate to be working with the City of Manchester Public Works Department on an upgraded parking lot design. Our goal is to enlarge this existing lot to accommodate 15 cars plus 2 designated universally accessible parking spaces and a city bus stop. We're excited about the bus stop making a hike in nature accessible to folks without their own method of transportation. Our goal is to create a trail that's a community asset with universal appeal, so families and friends of diverse abilities can get outside and enjoy experiencing the outdoors together. Through community conversations like this one, we're listening and learning. We've already gathered some great input from webinars with the LGBTQ+, people of color, and disability communities. We hope to act on as many of the suggestions and ideas that come from these conversations as we're able, within the bounds of our staff and financial resources. We also plan to share all suggestions with our conservation partners in hopes of infusing accessibility and inclusivity into trail planning projects beyond just this one. We plan to continue holding virtual events and coffee hours through next year to keep everyone updated on the trail build, and we hope that you'll continue to stay engaged with us. All right, thank you all so much for listening, and I am going to stop sharing my screen and hand it back over to Todd. Oh, you're muted, Todd. You need to unmute. Yeah.
Oh, so that was excellent, Charlotte. My computer continues to mute. I don't know what that means. It must mean it's tired of hearing me speak. But anyways, I didn't say much except to say to Charlotte, that was excellent. Thank you very much. 640 acres, that's incredible, right? I mean, 640 acres with 2 miles of trails. I mean, that is an incredible open space. And what's really more incredible about it is that it's available for people to use. There's a nonprofit owner in the Nature Conservancy, and then there's a relationship with the city, not to mention all the users we're going to hear from in just a few minutes. So really, really exciting. I have heard it said before that when people talk about equity and equality, one of the simplest things is to think about it is that equality means we all have access to trails, right? And I think we probably all have access, but equity means in many ways that, and I hope I'm not plagiarizing anybody, but equity means we have access to trails we can all use. So that seems to be what we're talking about here. Again, to draw that distinction between equality and equity, 640 acres, 2 miles of trails. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I love the outdoors. I live not far from this. I didn't know it was there. And we'll talk more about that in my presentation, because that's a really important piece to make sure people understand. And this is how livable communities wraps into projects like this. So I'll pause there, and we're going to show 2 brief pre-recorded videos from Elaine and Carl Schmotlaks and Bill FOSS about their experiences using the preserve. So it'll be great to just hear from them at this point. So I'll turn it over back to Sheila.
Hi, my name is Elaine. I live at Birch Hill Terrace, which is across the road from the Nature Conservancy 640-acre super-duper parcel of land. And I've been asked to talk about ways in which I connect with nature. And so I've been thinking about that, and what I have to say is, because Birch Hill is right across from the Nature Conservancy, there's a lot of similarity in terms of mammals and birds and plant material. And I really know my campus and its surrounds better than the Conservancy itself, and yet I know that there's a huge connection. Across the road from us in the Conservancy is a heron rookery where you've got a pond, dead trees that are called snags, and in the dead trees are these huge stick nests with herons that come back every spring and nest, and they fly over Birch Hill. So we don't have to go out to the heron rookery if we don't want to. We can see the herons flying overhead. They're huge, and they are slow flappers. They're very easy to identify. We also have ravens, and when you hear a raven, I have learned, look up and watch it, because they do tricks. And that's very fun. It doesn't happen very often, but it's fun. So there's mammals. Oh, let me tell you about the mammals. Man, oh man, we have got everything that we had in the woods where we lived in Nottingham. There's bobcat and beavers and fishers. There are otters and bears and coyotes. We've even seen some of these things on our campus. Moose on campus, bears, coyotes. Not to be scared of, but at night especially. They've been out here right at Birch Hill. So My husband and I hated to leave the wildlife in Nottingham because we lived in the woods with all those critters, but by golly, they came with us. And it's very exciting to know that they're out there. They have a boardwalk and they have trails, and all of them are pretty accessible. However, more accessible trails or boardwalks are in the works. And in the summer of 2021, there should be some really terrific, easily accessible, wheelchair accessible, elderly people accessible boardwalk and trail situations. So that's something to look forward to. And I think I'm going to go walk down to the Cedar Swamp Preserve and take advantage of the easy walking. There will be rhododendrons to see, and mountain laurel, and black gum trees, which are pretty rare, and which can be as much as 450 years old. So you're looking at a tree that was a seedling at the time of Shakespeare or Galileo. I mean, how cool is that? That tree is older than this country. And there are these cedars, and they are special too. They're Atlantic white cedars. So I'm looking forward to seeing all of those next summer when it's so very, very easy to access them, as opposed to right now when it's easy.
Fresh air, which is a good thing right now. It's exercise, both intellectually and spiritually and physically. It all comes together right here. Just taking the time to settle in and finding a presence that we can relate to. It's a wonderful experience. We sit in this beautiful hollow where they call it a pond or a swamp, but it's all created by, in this case, about 4 creatures who have maintained a dam since last year into this year and made it safe for all these birds to come and nest. It all comes together. It's like a puzzle. See that tree out there? That's where I gotta go to get the camera. The trail camera's out there strapped to the tree. The mission is for me to get out there, staying dry, get to the memory stick, change it, and come back. That's the nesting box out there. You can catch a little bit of that. Is make an approach full bore into 2.5 inches. Now, I'm not saying how it's going to make it, but it does, obviously. Yeah. So we're going to be blessed with a family, I think. Yeah. We have 18 nests, 18 families. We've averaged 2 to 3 chicks every season per nest. So we have a potential of maybe 54 babies. And we'll see those in July. You can look at that beaver lodge, or you can look at something and you see it because it relates to you in a special way. It just speaks to your heart and soul. You can see these birds doing what they do. To the uninformed, that's perhaps not too meaningful, but once you get to know these creatures, you begin to understand. Right now, it's pretty slow because they're still forming families. That's a process that is unique to these creatures, and it takes time, and we just have to settle into that and see what will be revealed in usually about an hour and a half. We get an opportunity to see some of the activity. Nature doesn't cough it up all at once. You got to be patient. Yes, it even smells good right now. Air is coming in from the northwest, and no mosquitoes, no black flies, just you and I, the heron and the beaver. And we're grateful for these creatures. All I can say is I feel blessed to be able to be here and see what's going on. All this nature, and it's affordable to enjoy the creation and at no extra charge.
So we're going to stop there with those two. Great. So, boy, Elaine, thank you so much for talking about, taking the time to talk about the super duper parcel. I mean, it is that among others. And Bill, really so poignant. I mean, really so poignant. Thanks for really helping us understand. You give us a lens to experience this through your eyes and your sensibility, which was something. It was just amazing. Thank you so much for that. Again, 640 acres, 2 miles of trails, teeming with wildlife, certainly inspiring those who use it, and certainly home to those who, to the wildlife that live there. So let's turn it over now to Kim Murphy, our third panelist. Kim, take it away.
Thanks, Todd. As you mentioned, my name is Kim Murphy. I'm the marketing specialist here at Birch Hill. And we are Manchester's only continuing care retirement community and a Riverwoods group community. Personally, I feel so honored to be a part of this special event. I'm a huge nature enthusiast. Anyone who knows me knows I'm always out hiking, camping, enjoying the outdoors. And we're so grateful to be partners with the Nature Conservancy for this event, and also to be a part of this project, which not only benefits, the residents of Birch Hill directly, but the entire community and the entire state. Our community really takes a holistic look or approach to wellness. So not only healthcare, nutrition, fitness, emotional wellness also, but another spoke is really connecting with nature. And we talk about it all the time in everything, in every aspect, in all levels of living here. And so to have these, amazing residents that live here that connect with nature so regularly and allow us, a window into what they do, like Bill, who writes a nature blog every day and shares it with many of the residents and employees and all of his friends and family. We're so grateful. And it's really amazing to see the variety of wildlife, as Elaine talked about. So the trail will really benefit us in a number of ways. And like I said, the entire community. But, there's a lot of, not a lot, but some residents that are in higher levels of care here in assisted living, nursing care, or even memory care that will directly benefit from this trail build and it'll open up a whole new world, to this little corner of nature, and really bring a lot more awareness to the fact that it's even here. As Todd mentioned, he didn't even know it was. And I didn't know it was either until I started working at Birch Hill a few years ago. So, this seems like it'll be the perfect balance of bringing more people in to be able to foster that important connection with nature, and also preserving all of the delicate wildlife that is living there and flourishing within the city of Manchester. So we just wanted to, say thanks again, and we are a continuing partner in this project, and partners with the Nature Conservancy. There's so much benefit in the connection to nature.
Thanks, Kim. Well, I'll be coming back to all of you. Before I do, I would encourage those to have your questions, and please ask the questions, because not only do we have these great guests and panelists able to answer your questions, but you might have a question somebody else wants answered, and just ask away. And we'll get to as many questions as we can. And in just a few minutes, we have a good 20 minutes for a moderated discussion. And I would like to have it not only be me, because if it's just me, my computer will mute me again, and that would be bad for all of us. But thank you, Kim. That's just really exceptional. I have a few slides that I want to get to, but not quite yet. Just one thing I'd like to say is that nationally, we at AARP have done surveys. And one of the most popular things that people do in the outdoor space arena is simply to walk on a trail. And I think in New Hampshire, we might take a lot of that for granted. I think many of us probably took a lot of that less for granted during the pandemic, when we could not necessarily go to the places we once had gone to. Certainly, a lot of us go to the local gyms and other places. A lot of us spend time in the wilderness, like Bill, although not necessarily as intrepid as he was walking out on that. I don't know what that was that you're walking out on. That was impressive, Bill. I'm an outdoor guy myself. I've been hiking since I've been a young boy. I just climbed a 4,000 footer on Saturday, but nonetheless, I don't know that I would have done what you just did. So that was impressive. But I would say to you, all of you, that to really underscore the importance of this project and an accessible trail, is that the walking trails are amongst the highest ranked thing that people get to experience in their communities. And they're not even nearly as exceptional as this space. And then the second piece that relates to the first is that trail signage is just really important. People want to know how far they walked. So is it a quarter mile? Is it a half mile? Is it 3/4 of a mile? It's a simple thing, but often we forget that the simple things can be very, very meaningful. And often we overlook the simplest things. And I'll try to be a little entertaining, but I mean, I would say to you, who those folks who may remember, luggage did not always have wheels on it. For the longest time, people would actually drag their things through the train station, bus terminals, or the airport. Now everybody's on wheels. That's a pretty simple invention, but I don't know that we always take the time, again, to be intentional and think about these types of things. So we have a great opportunity to do that now. So I just have a few slides, if I can get into my slides, and then and encourage people to continue to formulate your questions. So I'll only take like a 3 minutes on this, but I just want to introduce all of you to the Age-Friendly Network. AARP has, we are the US affiliate for the World Health Organization's Livable Communities Initiative. We call it the Age-Friendly Network. And basically it's a network that comprises millions of people nationwide. I think all in communities that are included in this can boast about 60 million people who are in places that have joined the Age-Friendly Network. So I'm just going to talk very, very briefly about this and turn it over to our questions. An age-friendly and livable community is really a place that is safe and secure, and you can see the definition here. It's a functional definition, but I'm going to give you an experiential one. And I want to use Bill as an example. So if you think about a place that that inspires you, that fills up your senses, to use a John Denver phrase, that lifts your spirit, that makes you count the many blessings in your life, whether you're a faithful person or not. I mean, those types of places go toward the whole idea of livability. And certainly there are various components to livability. But if you think about a place that does all of those things, and then by contrast, you think about a place that does not, like perhaps some of you were in impoverished parts of the nation or the world, or perhaps some of you served in the military and you were in a war zone, or you've certainly seen footage, or perhaps you were in a place that was just certainly very depressed or violent. And by contrast, you think about a place like this preserve, or you think about a place that really gave you all that you needed. Those are ideas of livable communities writ large. Like if you think about a college campus. It might have been your neighborhood. It might have been a high school campus that you lived in. It might be the place you live in now. It's a place where all of your needs are basically met. And so you can see that that's my emotional sort of definition of it. You can see a written definition of it here, and then we'll talk about what it looks like, at least graphically. So next slide, please. So this is how we look at the domains of livability. So there are various domains upon which we measure livability. Today, we're talking about outdoor spaces and buildings. And you can see that the domains basically split into two different areas, the built environment and the social environment. Now, of course, they're both really important and they both complement each other. So it's important to understand that one does require the other, but not necessarily. You can do things to make a place more livable without doing this to the fullest extent you can. So I won't get into the details of the age-friendly network. I just want you to understand that this is a framework for assessing livability, and that you can see you have these various domains of livability, outdoor spaces and buildings. And again, as we heard from Kim and from Elaine and from Bill today, you can see that those are places that are quite important. But when you do all of these different domains in a very intentional way, and be certain that people have opportunities for robust transportation, that they have places to live, that they can connect with other human beings, that they feel like they're respected and that they're included in a social way, regardless of their age, regardless of their race, et cetera. That there's a place for people to be most human, and that might mean just volunteering in a civic way, or being a poll worker, or maybe just having a part-time or a full-time job. And then one important piece that I want to just bring up is that communication and information is critically important. And here's a great example as to why. I think Kim and I both said, I think most of us like the outdoors, but I take it that Kim's an outdoor fan too. I mean, I went to high school in Manchester. I'm a New Hampshire native, so I'm a little shocked that I didn't understand those. And I live literally as the crow flies, maybe 4 miles from this place, but I didn't know about it. So if you look at the domain of communication and information, and you just strike the word city, see age-friendly community, you'd see that it's important to be able to tie it all together. So the domain of communication and information would say, outdoor spaces and buildings are a great part of who we are. And by the way, we have such a place. And by the way, it's fully accessible. So anyways, I won't spend too much time, but I would just refer you to it, aarp.org, age-friendly. There is no cost for this. We're not, this is not a money-making endeavor for this organization. This is just part of our social mission. And so really happy to be a part of this. Next slide, please. So there are some communities in New Hampshire that have joined the age-friendly network. And what the network is, as I said, 60+ million people and places where they live who've come together to informally share learnings. So going back to my silly wheels on suitcases thing, some places have already figured things out. Somebody has figured out how to do a network, a trail network. And I think it was the USDA we talked about. Charlotte, was it the USDA? Is that what you referenced, the guidance?
Yes.
Right. So, so clearly governmental agencies have done that in this instance about how you actually create an accessible trail, but other places have figured other things out. So if you look at this chart, this is the people who have joined in New Hampshire. So you see this large constellation in the top, on the top right-hand side near the White Mountains. That is the Mount Washington Valley, which has come together as a region to become more age-friendly. And by that, I mean livable and accessible and hospitable to those who are 8 or maybe even those who are 80. You'll also see that the town of Goffstown and Londonderry and the cities of Dover and Portsmouth have also joined our network. And they're all at different places in this endeavor. But the thing is that they're coming together to share learnings and to partake of the learnings of a larger whole, like I've talked about. So a great example would be Bethel, Vermont. For those skiers of you, Bethel, Vermont is home, I believe, to Sunday River. And it was, I don't know if it's still the case, but a few years ago, the volunteers and the good people of Bethel, Vermont had come together and they had figured out transportation, all of it. They figured out the whole thing. So if you lived in Bethel you had a volunteer network of transportation, which was pretty impressive. Again, I don't know where it stands now. I only share it with you to say that if you were in this network and you live in a town of 1,000, 3,000, 4,000 people, it's very possible that another town in some other part of the nation that you know nothing about has already confronted and overcome the challenge that you're dealing with, as it in its own right is thinking about becoming more intentionally age friendly or intentionally more livable. So next slide, please. So, you know, that's really it. This is the end of my slide. We'll come back and talk about, we'll take some questions now. So let me take a look at the Q&A and see what we can do. So the first one, I'm going to send it off to Bill. And the question is, as active nature users, how has your appreciation of the trail or nature in general evolved over time? And what, if anything, especially resonates as a senior? So let's start with Bill, and then see if Kim has anything to add to that. You are, oh, there you go, Bill. Thank you.
Well, I'm in my 80th year here. And in that 80th year, I've only been in the Conservancy. This is my third season, if you will, walking and experience the day-to-day nature environment in these 640 acres. And I guess what I've come to learn while I'm on this campus, afforded the opportunity to get out there each and every day, I learned that nature really does communicate if you allow it to be present. So that's why I say nature doesn't cough it up all at once. You have to spend some time with it. And I think any trail, I usually use what they refer to as bootleg trails, but given the opportunity, and it's going to happen in my life, not too distant future, to get out there with a device or with others to just spend some time quietly will be available to me. And I'm really looking forward to that because eventually we all get there. So I don't know if that directly answers the question, but there is in this particular region, make no mistake, you'll never come away disappointed. Every time you go out there, you will see something that will get into your soul. So hope that helps.
Bill, it does help, but I want to follow up with another part of that. It was very, I just love your answers. I can't wait to meet you in person because I'd like to at some point. I'll tell you, I once heard that you don't really know anything until you know its history. So my question is, what first brought you to the outdoors? So you talk about where you are now relative to the special connection you have with this place. What was it like? What brought you? What made you have such an appreciation for nature, if you can recall?
It's my roots. I grew up in Bangor, Maine, and I spent 3 summers in high school raking blueberries, living on a farm. And I guess that having an experience in a cow barn, you get a sense of animals and the importance of being there, present, and indeed, you can actually communicate with these animals. They make their needs known to you quite quickly. And as I say, it can be a bird in the trees. If you're sitting there, you notice those 3 birds in the trees. I had a whole family of them just above my shoulder. And you know, it's a communication process. It just makes you feel good. I don't know if it's pretty hard to articulate this in just through a network in a few seconds, but it takes time and patience.
Thank you, Bill. Charlotte, how about you? How has your appreciation of the trail or nature in general evolved over time? You speak with some passion about this project too, so tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've had an appreciation, I mean, just for as long as I can remember. But I would say that, you know, in positions I've held in the past were very single species focused. And now just from, you know, my experience working with the Nature Conservancy, I would say that, you know, I just think about the big picture a lot more. And yeah, I mean, it's my appreciation for nature has just grown exponentially, and for the organizations that, you know, are helping with these things. So
thank you. How about you, Kim? Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Charlotte. How about you?
Yeah, this is kind of a loaded question as a nature lover, and there's a lot to say, right? I've always spent a lot of time outdoors. My entire life, I've appreciated nature. And I think, you know, as a nature lover, the more that I've grown and learned about the processes of nature, the more I've learned to connect with it. And I felt some of the physiological benefits, right? You know, if I'm having a stressful day, I'll go outside and take a walk and immediately feel calm, right? And for me, part of my personality is connecting. I feel a lot more calm when I'm near water, whether it's the ocean or a lake, or even a stream, a babbling brook. So, you know, I feel like there's this emotional connection with nature also that I feel and learn to kind of foster that relationship. And that's what's also very important to the health and wellness of all of our residents here at Birch Hill. You know, we make that nature connection really a part of our wellness program here. And the residents that take advantage of it, you know, talk about it all the time, which is why we have so many enthusiastic panelists here today, right? But I think it's something that you continue to nurture, and it grows over time throughout your lifetime. And, you know, once you have that appreciation, you seems like you just can't really get enough of it. You know, you stop and you notice the sunset, or how big the moon is tonight, or, you know, that neat little flower. You know, you just start to pick up on all the little details that the earth presents for you, and you want to protect them too.
It's a great explanation. Yeah, I mean, I have had situations up in New Hampshire's Lakes region when you come out and the stars are so bright, it almost makes you lie down just to look at them. If we just take a couple moments to pause, which is great. And I think Bill talks about that. Nature doesn't give it up all at once, so it's nice. Bill, how can we encourage more seniors to get involved in nature?
Well, I think in today's world, ease of access. You know, if we could do it from our armchair, it probably would be a hit. Yeah, it's a struggle, but I think it's inborn in us. It's bred, if you will, within the soul to want to get out there and communicate. And once you overcome the inertia, and inertia does play a role in this, especially as you age. Make no mistake about it. But as Kim just relayed to us, once you get out there, as you said, getting out there to look at the stars at night, all of a sudden you want to lay down and suck it in. Yeah, it's get through the inertia, get out there, and it will speak to you. It really will. It communicates. Just let it do that.
That's great. This one's back to Charlotte. Kathleen wants to know how the Nature Conservancy plans to encourage more use of the trails.
Yeah, this is a great question. So, I mean, just through these events, we're hoping to raise more awareness about the existing trail system that is at the preserve. But once the accessible trail is built, we're actually thinking of, you know, as long as it's safe to gather, you know, in groups, we're actually hoping to host guided tours of specifically of the accessible trail. And, you know, those tours could be just open to the general public, or we could sort of target them towards, you know, certain demographics or, you know, group of people. So, yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of different events that we're going to be able to offer people that are, you know, just focused on this trail. So.
Staying with you, Charlotte, here's another question, a technical one, and I love these technical questions. So this is a slope question. So Kristen says that I'm not sure where that was, doesn't really matter, put in an FSTAG trail, Forest Service Trail Accessibility Guidelines, basically is what informed the build, rather than ADA because they had slope issues. So they had an 8% slope on a 0.3 mile trail. So anyway, she says it was well used. And so a very technical question, but does the Conservancy use those standards ever? And then how do you decide what's the best standard to use if you have a choice between more than one?
So what I know about the FSTAG trail guidelines, or what I think I know is that they're actually based on the ADA guidelines. So to my knowledge, the guidelines should be the same, you know, when it comes to slope. And then what was the second question that you posed?
Oh, that was it. We have more coming to you though.
Oh.
Yeah, let me see. There was more than that. Yeah, and well, if you had a choice between standards, but I think you answered the question that basically the ADA needs to inform all those standards. I'd be surprised if they were differing standards, frankly, based upon my own experience. But even still, I think that was a great answer. So thanks for that.
Yeah, of course.
That's Charlotte. So let's see. So we have some more questions. Lots of questions coming in, folks. Good, keep them coming. So let me ask, Kim, this is a question really for you. I guess somebody wants to know if this is an independent, if your facility, I think you might want to talk just very, very briefly about what a CCRC is. They want to know if it's for independent folks, the Birch Hill facility.
Yeah, sure. So Birch Hill is a continuing care retirement community. And it's a continuum of life care. People enter as independent residents or adults like Bill and Elaine. And if and when they need it, a higher level of care like assisted living, memory care, nursing care is available. And so yeah, it's basically your life care plan. You don't have to worry about who's going to provide your health care or how much it will cost and where that will happen. Everything will be planned out. The independent residents benefit from the Conservancy the most now, but the universal trail will really open it up to many more residents.
Nice.
Some accessibility challenges.
Bill, one of our guests today wants to know how much time you spend in the Conservancy property.
I spend at least any day I'm on campus. I spend an hour to an hour and a half. I have 2 trail cameras. One of them is a video, one is a standalone snapshot. So I track the animal behavior. Both the heron, we have 2 seasons. One is the heron season that begins in March. The other, the beaver, really runs all year long. But basically, I'm out there about an hour and a half every day doing my camera thing and monitoring the wood duck boxes, nesting boxes. There are 5 of those out there. I'd just like to say, if I might, with the 3 years that I've been going down to the heron colony, the great blue heron, we fledged 33, what have I got? 33, 38, and this last year we fledged 44 chicks out of approximately 17 nests. And 4 of those nests had 4 chicks in it. And if you really wanted to see something spectacular, you want to see 4 very large chicks standing about 2 feet high in a stick nest. That's quite an experience. So the other thing is that we've started 3 years ago with 3 beaver, 2 parents and a young beaver. We're now up to, I suspect, 10 creatures in 3 lodges. So they've gone from 1 lodge to 3 lodges. So we are a very vibrant and healthy community. Things are happening down there. So the Conservancy folks really should take a high five because they're a spectacular job down there. It's very healthy.
No, that's great. You know, it's also there really are a lot of success stories all around us. I mean, you know, obviously this trail is itself a success story. The preservation of that area is a success story. But you think about, you know, some years ago, for those of us who may know New Hampshire, I mean, years and years ago when we were much more industrial in Manchester, the rivers you could see different colors depending upon the sweaters they were making. That's true. I mean, people don't believe that's true, but it absolutely is true. And now sometimes if you're up in the northern, a little bit north of here, you can, on the Merrimack, you can see the great blue herons flying. Maybe they're going home to the preserve or they're coming back. I don't know. But Bill, I got another question for you, another follow-up. As we're closing in on the colder seasons, it seems to me that a lot of people seem to think that the outdoors of New Hampshire is really one that you can enjoy or should enjoy probably April through October if you're lucky. So can you just, for the good folks on the call and on this program, can you talk to them about like what secrets nature may hold for people from November through March and how you get out there, just briefly?
Snowshoes.
Okay.
They'll be coming. I have snowshoes, and again, I leave the community on my snowshoes. I put them on before I leave and go across the street using the trails. I've come to understand beaver behavior. They're out there in that pond 24/7, and they're coming and going in from the pond into the stream below. Have pictures of them. They're very active. There's plenty to see in there. So virtually that community animals, the bobcat is still running around. I've got videos of a bear down there last year looking into a beaver hole. You know, it's going all the time. I never come away disappointed. There's always a surprise. So
that's
it's worth the trip.
Kim, back to you. What was that question? I just lost it. I'm sorry, it moved up. I apologize. So I'm going to go back to Charlotte. I'll find that question. What's your timeline on the project, Charlotte?
So right now, the trail is construction is set to be starting in May of 2021. And we're expecting it to take a minimum of 2 months for the project to be completed. But we also have some grant applications out, which may or may not postpone the start date of the project. But I believe regardless of whether or not we get these grants, the project should be done by late fall 2021.
Mary wants to know if the trails are open to the public, and if so, is there a guide?
Yes, the trails are open to the public. I was just going to see if, or maybe Sheila could put the link to the trail map that's like from nature.org into the chat for everyone.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, yeah. The existing trails there is a trail map for them, and it's pretty easy to find. So Sheila, just put that in the chat.
Kim, back to you. Chris wants to know if there are workshops or presentations for residents of Birch Hill as a neighbor to learn more about the plants and animals out in the swamp park or the trails. Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, that's a great question. And what we would do is refer anybody who wants to know more to either Bill or Elaine, or there's a handful of other residents that are active explorers over there. We have had the Nature Conservancy as guests at Birch Hill to present about our amazing asset next door and just talk about nature in general. And I think a few years back, our residents were actually rewarded or awarded some kind of recognition for their volunteer action next door. You know, an actual workshop to the other residents would be an amazing idea. And we would certainly be happy to partner with the Nature Conservancy to make that happen so that we're not missing any important facets, you know, so that more people are aware of this trail project and all that the Conservancy has to offer.
One of our participants wants to know if they can walk the preserve with Bill or Elaine when they're touring. So I would say to that person, why don't you just call Kim, and then Kim would need to talk to Bill and Elaine so we don't put them on the spot. But
absolutely. I think that Bill, I don't want to speak for Bill, but I know that he's been more than happy to share what he knows about the Conservancy with a number of residents and a number of people who are interested in moving to Birch Hill. You know, I'm pretty sure that it would still be the same.
Nice. Charlotte.
Or I would be happy to take them over too.
Great. I think we get that question answered. Super. Charlotte, back to you. Are multi-sensory interpretive displays or structures being incorporated into the initial design, or will these be considered later after the trail surfaces, pull-off areas, and benches are built? Obviously, probably a function of cost is for sure too. I mean, to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm glad that somebody brought this question up, because we actually are, we are hoping to incorporate multisensory interpretive panels into the design, and we're hoping to have at least some of them incorporated into the trail when it's opened, I believe, because we're already sort of in the works of figuring out what that content should be. Yeah, and so we're hoping for these displays to have visual and audio elements to them. So.
You can, this is a question you're not going to expect, and it's a question from me, so you guys can just say no. And this is mostly for the Nature Conservancy. But what is the overall budget for the project and sources of funding for it, and where do you stand relative to that?
So the projected project cost is about $520,000. So far, we've raised $300,000, and that's come from donors. And I mean, I'm not involved in that part of, you know, all of this, but it comes from donors and from grants. And yeah, those are the only sources that I can think of.
That's fair. That's fair. So, I mean, essentially, it's important for folks to know. I'm sure a lot of people on this call already know it, but you know, these aren't necessarily, in many cases, this is not taxpayer money, right? It's a public-private partnership. And, you know, I'm not sure, and I won't put Kim on the spot to talk about the intricate relationship, if there is one, between TNC and her organization. There may be, there may not be, but at the end of the day, the point people need to understand is that, you know, people of goodwill who really like these places tend to support them. And this is not something that's on the public dollar, frankly. I mean, there could be some public participation. You know, I don't know if there could be. I mean, I suppose there could be if the city were so inclined to participate. But I'm sure primarily it's mostly the foundation community and individuals. So I want to take us home with Bill. Last question, and then we'll wrap it up. As an older person, Bill, what are your biggest concerns when you go out on any of the trails in that area?
My biggest concern, staying vertical. Sounds so easy, but it's using sticks, using good judgment, and following trail guidelines is important. And I don't mean to be smooth talking about it. The affordable or the new trail that they're proposing is going to make that so much easier, because there's going to come a time, even with walking sticks, I'm not going to feel like going out and taking on the more robust trails. And knowing that trail is going to be there will at least give me access to the future. And that's why I'm so involved and so emotionally into this, because I know the day is coming. And so it's something to look forward to. And hope is one of the things that's really, it's the propellant that keeps us going forward these days, especially during COVID-19. So we've got to look forward to what the Conservancy is doing here. It's going to be a wonderful access for anybody, and that's under any conditions. Thank you.
Well, it's been an honor to actually hear from the builder, the user, and the partner. And what a neat thing. This is what we talk about when we talk about livable communities and outdoor spaces. And certainly, Bill, the user, your words were really great, very inspirational, and keep at it. And thanks for all that you've done out there and for joining us today, which was super. Charlotte, you too, really great. You're a real asset to your organization. I love your technical expertise and your passion for the for the work that you're doing. Really, really inspirational. And please keep at it, because we need these spaces and we need people like you to help organizations like the Nature Conservancy carry the banner, which is awesome. And Kim, same with you. I mean, really kind of neat, to connect the dots here, really, for everybody, right? I mean, between outdoor spaces and just joyful living, and even with people who might be a little bit older. AARP is a nonpartisan organization. We're focused on the well-being of the 50+, their families, and the communities in which they live. So it's a fair game conversation for us to have with all of you. And I was really honored that you asked me all to moderate today. And hopefully everybody listening has enjoyed it. So we are at time. And with this, we'll give it we'll call it a day. So thank you for joining. Be well.